What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be another very important day as we have some big data coming out in the morning, what's happening with the earnings that just came out, and what the news is saying about NIO. But before I break into details information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500 into the account, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, NIO is down 6%. We saw SPY close kind of in the red. We got a big rejection off this 50 EMA. I told you if we broke this, we would turn bullish. If we ended up projecting here, I thought it would just hold up a little bit better than this, but it ended up getting a big rug pull as we saw some more analysts say some very, very bad things about NIO. They're saying that NIO is not, once again, one of the best of stocks to own, and there's more downside potential for it. So we saw some negative price action as a result of that. So I want to talk about some data first before I break down the charts. Tomorrow is going to be Thursday, February 29th. As a reminder, we have PCE data coming out and personal spending, not to mention the jobs numbers. So the most important thing is going to be PCE. Year over year, we're expecting about excuse me, guys, I apologize, 2.4%. And for core PCI, we're expecting 2.8 to 2.9%. That's going to be very important, so we'll see what it causes. Now, looking at some data, if you look at CPI, because PCE is very similar to CPI, over the last reports, we saw a slight increase in all items, food and without food and energy. So core CPI was actually kind of flat. We saw a decent CPI on all items, so let's hope we get a decent one for PCE. But this doesn't really guarantee anything. So there's a very good chance that PCE is going to be decent, but for all items PCE, I'd be a little bit concerned. I'm sorry, not all items. Core PCE, I'd be a little bit more concerned because the last time core CPI came out, it was a little bit hotter than expected. So we might get a little hot core PCE. So we'll just have to wait and see. So we watch to see how this data affects us. After PCE comes out, we have a lot of Fed speakers reacting. We have Bostic and just a couple of others. And besides that, we have more like Mester giving a speech. So a bunch of Fed speakers after all this data comes out. We have initial jobless claims in the morning alongside PCE, and we'll see what happens an hour before the market opens. That's when all the data comes out. Now, with that being said, for earnings, we had Marathon, Snowflake, Salesforce, and AMC. Starting off with AMC, overall the share price is down, but the overall earnings were not too bad. We actually have this very, very nice looking report that came out. Basically, our total revenue is up to about 4.8 billion, at least for 2023. So there's a slight improvement of 23% compared to the previous year. But unfortunately, when it comes to their losses, it was actually not as bad as expected. They lost about, I believe it's 54 cents per share. Relative to what we saw before, it's a slight improvement. And then we're going to be watching to see what happens as time progresses. That's the full year transcript. I'm going to try to open this in a new tab and then zoom into this. Give me 1 second, guys. So hopefully this is not too fuzzy if I zoom into it, but this is what it's going to look like. So we have the numbers here. They're a little fuzzy, guys. I do apologize for that, but it doesn't really matter. I could just read these to you. Looking at the overall transcript, you could see how the financial summary looked. For the fourth quarter, total revenue grew 11%, but everything else was still close to expectations. So now the question is, how will AMC do moving forward? Their guidance was kind of decent, not the strongest overall, and the share price is still down despite that. It's a very manipulated stock. Salesforce also slipped after its earnings came out. EPS was a beat, but revenue was just barely meeting expectations. But despite doing so well, their overall guidance was not the strongest. And that's the reason why we saw this actually drop. And that has to do with light revenue forecasts for the fiscal year. So that's not what we wanted to see. Then we have Marathon right here, which actually did relatively decent. Revenue increased 229% in 2023. Net income improved by $261 million. Everything else was looking quite good, especially as the debt was reduced by almost 60%. For NIO, they had a tech deal that was very, very important. This is with 47, and this is actually one of the biggest investors in Abu Dhabi. So this is now they're going to be licensing technology to its biggest investor, and this is actually very good news for them. They're actually known for helping to create luxury cars in England, and now it's going to be pressed by its other competitors. So that being said, that's some good news for NIO. Don't forget that NIO was also bought up by Abu Dhabi. We had a $2.2 billion deal. And now, on top of this, with this happening, we're seeing a lot of potential for it. But one thing that's a little concerning is the fact that JP Morgan Chase and a lot of these other big banks are saying to sell NIO. Shares are going to drop and they have a $5 target and this and that. And that news is still affecting us because another analyst came out and said some negative things about NIO today, which led to it selling off even more. So that's a little bit negative news. Excuse me. And on top of this, there's more talk coming out right over here about how NIO is being looked at right here for another premiere release in Sweden, which is good news for them. Volume was about 60 million, so above average volume, which is quite good. And we also saw JP Morgan give NIO this downgrade. So what happens to NIO for tomorrow? Well, we're on a slight downtrend on the 4 hour. Don't forget we have PCE and the jobs numbers coming out for tomorrow. So that's going to dictate how the market looks. NIO does look a little bearish. It could retest 5.34, then try to bounce off that. So we'll just have to see how it goes. For SPY is on a slight downtrend right now. We're looking a little bearish on our MACD. And we'll have to see if we could try to hold 505 or barely above this in the after hours. If we lose this, we could see a test of 503 tomorrow before we try to bounce. But technicals are not everything. We'll just have to wait and see what happens with PCE. PCE may cause us to gap up or gap down, so we'll just have to wait and see. PCE is going to be the biggest dictator of how the market moves. Now, Tesla is turning a little bit on the 4 hour, but overall, we have a cup and handle like formation. If we break above 205, a big breakout is coming. If we fail to get the breakout, we could turn back to bearish, but it depends on PCE. I do think that PCE could come in very close to expectations, but I'm not as sure about what's going to end up panning out for all items without food and energy, so core PCE. So for that reason, we could actually come down just a little bit and try to bounce. I think that there's a chance that if we end up getting a hot core PCE, we might end up coming down a little bit to retest 199. Then we'll see if we bounce or not. So I'll be watching that very carefully just to see how things go. For a couple of others, we have Aapl looking a little bit weak right now. If we get a hot PCE, we're going to be retesting 180 or below that. If we bounce, 183 plus is coming, so we'll just have to wait and see. For the QQQ, it's the same thing. If we're bearish after PCE, we could be looking for a big drop to fill this gap all the way down to about 431. We'll see if we bounce off that or not. Or if we bounce from here and we get a decent PCE, we could rebound. But the charts are looking a little bit weak, so there is a chance we might start off a little lower tomorrow. Nvda, this thing might test 771. We'll see if we bounce off that or not. It's looking a little bearish. It's been downtrending quite a bit. So we'll see what PCE causes. So expect some high volatility, and we'll see what happens after that. So that being said, guys, there's not really a whole lot I can predict and with high accuracy. I will tell you that NIO looks a little bearish, and we could be testing 5.34 very, very soon. But it's going to depend on a lot of factors, and we'll see how NIO does. So we'll have to wait and see how things go. We'll have to wait and see what happens with NIO, and we'll see what happens with this big data release that's coming out. So wait for PC tomorrow morning. And with that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, guys. Get ready for some big data, and we'll see what this causes going into the future. Will it cause NIO to bounce and start pushing back up to about 5.6, or do we get the rug pull around 5.3 to 5.25 and then bounce after that? We'll just have to wait and see. Wait for PC to come out to give us that move. Thank you for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.